This one or this one?
Good evening, everyone. Good evening. I want to welcome everyone to Abundant Life Church, Real Talk Mental Health. I want to first acknowledge Bishop and Lady Jones, and I want to thank y'all for letting us have this today. And I want to call Minister Chris up to bless us in prayer.
Good evening, everyone. This is not just a day. This is the day that the Lord has made. Amen? Amen. Let us rejoice and be glad in it. It's not just a regular day. No day is just a regular day in the Lord. Amen. Let us compose our hearts for prayer. Dear God, we come to you this evening, thankful for another opportunity to come to your house. And tonight, Lord, we're doing something special, Father. Your word says that we should pray that not only prosper, but to be in good health, even as our souls prosper, Father. So we just ask you to move in a mighty way. Use these panel members to share their insights, their wisdom, their knowledge. Help us to be even better, all the more because we came together seeking your guidance, your wisdom through these vessels, Father. So use them and endow us with wisdom from on high, and we'll give you the praise, the honor, and the glory. It truly all belongs to you. And everyone in agreement said amen. 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 We're back in the hands of Sister Jessica.
Okay, we're going to start this thing. I know it's late. 7:30 was a little late, but we are here, and we're going to serve the purpose. So I'm going to have each one of our panel members to introduce themselves. Start with you, Dr. Jamil.
Dr. Jamil, I am a psychiatrist. I'm a attending psychiatrist at Gadsden Regional Hospital, and we have an inpatient. We have 2 adult inpatient units, and we have a geropsych unit. We treat the patient, we admit the patient, we commit the patient, we transfer those patients who need long-term care. Judge Hassel commit the patients, and we send them to different parts of Alabama, and where they stay, that's a partial hospitalization for up till 150 days. Those people who are severely mentally ill, we have that facility. Our unit is designated inpatient facility for long-term care also. So we can keep those patients for 30 days. So it's a kind of long-term also, those acute treatment. When patient comes to the ER, we can evaluate and we can discharge, we can admit. We also have the facility to transfer those patients to the outpatient. We have a referral system to the mental health, and we have a referral system to the outpatient clinic to Alabama Psychiatry. So we have a comprehensive, and Judge Hassel he will tell you that he also is developing a team where they have support system. Yes.
And thank you, Dr. Jamil. First of all, thank you for putting this on. Pastor, thank you for allowing us to join and be a part of this fellowship here, and thank you for joining us at home. Today's topic is so incredibly important. I would suspect that there's not a single person you would interact with that has not been touched in some way by mental illness. We are blessed and fortunate, more than I can express here in Etowah County, because we have service providers. You can get that anywhere, but we have people that care. And I'm not saying this because Dr. Jamil's sitting next to me, but he's just one more example of people that care and have a compassion and a passion for their patients, not just to get them over their crisis, but to get them on the pathway of healing. I'm sorry, I'm Scott Hassel. I'm Etowah County's Judge of Probate. I was elected in 2018. I spent 30 years, well, not quite 30, but about 27 years with the Sheriff's Office. Prior to that, I was either working for or was in private practice as a psychologist with different places. If you're in that world, you've worked everywhere. I've been at Mountain View, the Bridge, I think Three Springs, maybe Bradford for a while. So I've made the rounds. But I really felt like the Lord was impressing upon me that this was my season, this was the time of opportunity to be a voice for those that don't have a voice. And while mental health commitments are not the only thing that the probate office does, I do think it gives me a voice to do some things perhaps that I would not have been able to do otherwise. And I've got a great accountability partner called my wife, my beautiful wife here, who will slap me if I get out of line. And you're going to get to see and hear from some of our team. Jason is our community mental health officer, but also, and is it okay if I have Brian come up here for just a minute? I am so excited, and hopefully in a little bit, you can, I want you to hear from Brian. Brian, he works for CED, but he works with us. He's a peer support specialist. I'm going to talk to you tonight, Dr. Jamil, all of us are going to share with you about mental illness. But the blessing of Brian's life is he works with us to be able to share that recovery is possible. And I'm not going to take his thunder. I want him to give an opportunity to share his story. But it's a very powerful story. But it's that team of people that I think is the catalyst to get things going. You never give a preacher a mic on Wednesday night. I'll talk all night. But I'll say this and then I'll hush and we can move on to someone else that's got more sense than I do. But as you're watching this tonight, I want you to kind of put this in the back of your mind. Don't look at us as a team that solves the problem. Look at us as maybe the offense of trying to handle emergencies or crisis. You're the defense. You're behind the scenes. It's in your homes, in our communities, in our churches, working together. And I know everybody says that, and it sounds good. Now you look around, and for those of you at home, you can't see, this building is not full. And I think that's representative of our society today. People just don't get involved. But until we get involved, nothing's ever going to change. So I hope tonight is just a catalyst and the start of some great things. Brian, tell him a little. I'm sorry, I've taken your thunder. Brian, can tell him.
Oh, well, good evening. I didn't know I was going to be on the stage tonight, but I will say if I'm a little shaky and my words are a little off, it's because I've had a baptism of fire tonight. I went on my I first got my desk this morning, and I went on my first on-call with Jason, of course, who hasn't spoken yet, to support someone who was in a crisis, a mental health crisis. But to be honest with you, this wasn't my first baptism of fire. The reason why I work with CD and probate court and Judge Hassel and Jason is because I've experienced a serious mental health condition. I know what it's like for your brain to turn against you and to not be able to handle life, to be that person presenting on the street that people avoid, family members turning against you, and your brain becoming what should be a place of peace, the one thing that you can't take away from, someone can't take away from you, no matter what situation you're in, is your own brain and your own thoughts turn into a prison. And like Judge Hassel said, I know that recovery is possible because I'm on the stage tonight.
That's right.
And if I'm on the stage tonight, there's hope, and not just for me, but for you and for everyone struggling in the world. And I'm just happy to be on the stage and to be surrounded by people who see the need there is out there.
Good job. Good job.
I'm Jason Doyle. I'm as Judge House said, the Community Mental Health Officer for Etowah. I'm a social worker by trade, about 8 years family and children's services, and about 2 years mental health now. I'm blessed, blessed to see community in action. That's what this is today. I'm blessed to be able to work with a family. I don't call these people coworkers up here. They're my family. We're blessed to have a judge that's passionate about mental health. And one thing I've enjoyed about working with this team, there's not a no. You will not hear the word no in our team. It's blessed. I'm blessed to be a part of that. And just, we're always trying to improve mental health in our, within the probate court system. During the day, it sounds kind of like a superhero. We do outpatient treatment. That's where individuals come from Dr. Jamil in the hospital. He recommends outpatient treatment for us at probate court. They're typically with us from 60 to 150 days. Each client and patient, I like to refer to our them as patients, They come in for one 30-minute session of therapy each week, and they check in with me. And then, of course, as Brian said, my new family member, I do crisis calls around the clock. So he got to experience that this evening. We are called out by law enforcement. If a law enforcement officer has an interaction with someone who's expressing possible harm to themselves or others, or is having a kind of mental health crisis moment per se, that officer then calls us out to do an involuntary commitment in the field, because our number one goal is we don't want our individuals who are experiencing mental health to end up in jail. They need to go to the hospital. So that's how we work with our law enforcement teams. And I'd also like to say, and I'm not going to forget her, my wife here, I appreciate you and the support you do too, because she sends a lot of prayers my way as well. And I appreciate y'all.
Sergeant Mitchell James with the Gadsden Police Department. There would have been a time when you would not have expected an officer to be on a panel like this, but times have changed, and with times changing, the police department has had to change. I'm glad I've been here. I've been an officer in Gadsden for nearly 30 years, and I'm proud to say that I've personally seen it go from a situation where we did show up and we give people a choice of jail or hospital. And quite often people who are who are having a crisis moment or they're in an altered state can't effectively make that decision. But now we've arrived at a time where we are allowed to reach out to these gentlemen and get people the help they need instead of taking them and locking them up somewhere they don't really need to be. I know we're going to have a full discussion here tonight, so I would like to say one thing. We're trying to change things in the department. Chief Jaggers has put us in a direction where communication and de-escalation and crisis intervention has become a large part of what we do. I'm the sergeant for the community housing unit, but I'm also the team leader for the Etowah County JSOG unit. Y'all would know it as a SWAT team. And our JSOC unit is comprised of a SWAT team, the bomb squad, and the negotiation team. I'm the team leader of the negotiation team. And we've had to go from a situation where we talk people out of homes because they've committed criminal issues or violence in the family to most of our call-outs now are of a mental health type situation. So I'm proud to say that we are trying to change the past perceptions and the way things used to be so that we can be community officers serving the community and sometimes even act as the base level of response for these guys. So I haven't worked with a doctor yet, but these two gentlemen, you know, they're there for us and we work hand in glove. And just in closing, I want to say this. As police officers or as a department, we are quite often judged based on our failures in regards to these situations. And I don't have to, y'all watch TV, y'all know what happens in the world. We're quite often based on judged on our failures, but for every one situation that y'all hear of that turns out violently, there's 99 other ones that nobody ever hears about. And life just goes on. So thank y'all for having us here tonight. And as many of you know, go ahead.
If it's okay, I'd like to bounce off that a little bit too. Recently, and maybe you guys don't even know, they had a situation Gadsden PD did where an individual was barricaded in a home. He was a veteran. So as a team, we worked together, and I was able to go to crisis training with Veterans Affairs, and they gave an award that these guys really didn't even know about, and the community didn't know about, but the Veterans Affairs was appreciative of how Gadsden PD and Etowah Probate Court convened together to get that individual appropriate mental health, and that was a win. That was a win for us.
Yeah.
And there's actually a lot of that going on that nobody really knows about because, again, you don't hear about it when it turns out well. You only hear about it when it's on ABC 3340 and people are talking about how we did a horrible job at handling this. And I will admit, sometimes we don't do the best job, but we're working on that. And I can honestly say that we are trying to do better in regards to mental health.
Let me add to this. Right now, we have polycrisis. It is not mental health crisis, they are polycrisis. One is mental health crisis. Suicide decline in 2019. Now it is again on the rise. You will be surprised to know every year 400 physicians commit suicide. 725 nurses commit suicide. So imagine, there is high number of the adolescents aged 17 to 24 are committing suicide. 50% of the adolescents in that age are suffering from depression. The problem with the mental health is that we don't have any lab workup. So a lot of people don't believe because everybody wants the evidence because world always work on evidence. Show me the evidence. That's why people don't understand why we are taking the medicine. And sometimes when the medicine doesn't work, I get frustrated also because we don't have lab workup. So there is a study when adolescents commit suicide, 80% of the parents have no idea that their kids were having depression. So, if anybody, parents, brother, sister, friends, see somebody acting strange, acting not their norms, talk to them because you don't know how deep they are in depression, how deep they are in crisis, because they are not going to tell you. So you have to step up. If you forget everything what you have listened today, if your take-home message today is to step up, if you think that somebody is not feeling well emotionally, lend your hand and just step up because this is the crisis which is not going to go away.
And just to bounce off what Dr. Jamil said, for example, we can do lab work, we can check your A1C, and we can say, hey, you're diabetic, and we can put you on medication. But we don't have lab work to test for anxiety. There's not lab work to test for depression. So when he was saying, show me the evidence, it's none. So mental illness is hard to tackle because there's no evidence, no proof, So just to bounce off what he said, watch your close friends if they are acting strange. But Dr. Jamil, I had a question for you.
Mm-hmm.
As far as mental health, can you tell us the difference in psychological mental illness and situational mental illness, such as substance abuse? Like when a patient comes into the hospital, how do you know if it's psychological or substance abuse without lab work?
Before making a definite diagnosis of mental illness, a person should be free of any drug for 6 months. That is one of the fundamental things. We cannot make diagnosis of schizophrenia, bipolar disorder, major depressive disorder if they are on drugs. And you have to be careful making that diagnosis because once an ER or a psychiatrist label a person a schizophrenic or bipolar, any diagnosis, nobody is going to wipe that diagnosis. So you have labeled that person for rest of their life that diagnosis because there is no lab workup. So that is the reason I tell the ER physician or everybody, don't diagnose unless you have a concrete evidence. So whenever the drug is involved, we always diagnose them substance-induced psychosis, substance-induced mood disorder. So, and if you look around, vaping is so much rampant. And some of these drugs, they don't show up even on the labs. There is a new drug which is called gas station heroin. And when people come to our hospital, they are in a withdrawal so much that they become psychotic. We have to keep them for 72 hours or at least for 5 days, and after 4 or 5 days, they become normal and they ask what happened. And we say, and they don't even know that the cannabis or marijuana which they were smoking was laced by that drug. Yeah.
Judge Hassel. So Judge Hassel is the probate judge. Judge Hassel is the only person in Etowah County that can give an order to have a person involuntarily committed into a psychiatric facility. He's the only person who can do that in Etowah County. So can you explain that process and what it looks like? Can you explain, does that person, if it's not a relative, if it's just a friend, can you explain the process of what a person needs to do to have a person involuntarily committed?
Absolutely. And before I do, you may have seen me look at my watch a couple of times. It's my Apple Watch. And we've got someone that volunteered to wear our hallucinations simulator. Are you okay?
Wave your hand.
Are you okay? If it gets too much, take it off. What I'd like to do, she's right now, if you look at her, you wouldn't know this until I just said it, but she's experiencing auditory hallucinations. In just a little bit, I'd like to hear your perspective of what it's like to listen to us and just interact with the world while experiencing that while we're here. But to your question, so any person in Alabama, an adult, can come to our court and say that we believe that someone has a mental health crisis. I'm going to piggyback on what Dr. Jamil said, because so many times it looks just like that. They come to us when they're in crisis. It may be someone who has shown signs and symptoms of a mental illness for years, but people just overlooked it and just accepted it. It's almost like, have you ever heard the person that say, I'm having tightness in my chest, my left arm hurts, but it's probably just, I pulled a muscle, only to find out later it was a heart condition. The sooner we can get a patient in front of someone like Dr. Jamil, the better the outcome's going to be. So as I tell you about the process, I want to encourage folks that it doesn't have to be an emergency. If you feel like someone is having a mental illness that is pervasive, that's starting to affect their life, you can come by our office at any time. The way it looks, you'll come to our office. I'm going to connect you with our community mental health officer and some other staff that are going to talk to you and kind of see what the needs are. If we feel like that it is a mental health condition that needs to be addressed, I'm going to appoint that personal lawyer at no charge, the petitioner, the person that's actually signing the petition. We're going to sit them down. We're going to get all the facts. And while that's going on, behind the scenes, Jason and Katrina and the rest of our team is going to be looking at different things. We're going to be looking at the Credible system, which is Alabama's mental health database, to see if that person has perhaps received treatment somewhere in Alabama. We're going to be reaching out to the hospital. Maybe Dr. Jamil and his staff had seen them a couple of weeks before. The more information we have, the better. Then I'm going to take a look at it, and I'm going to listen to the recommendations of our healthcare professionals. And if it's a situation where they need to be hospitalized, we're going to start reaching out to hospitals. And it's not just Gadsden Regional. Gadsden Regional is a gem for us. But because they do such a great job, we run out of beds quickly. So we may have to reach out if it's a Jerry site for an elderly person in Riverview. We use Brookwood, Hillcrest. There's a number of hospitals across Alabama that we can use. So what I would do is we would have the sheriff go and take that person to the hospital. We're going to clear them through the emergency department. And I won't get into the medical part, but after they've been there, within 7 days, I'm going to have a hearing, a probable cause hearing, to decide whether or not they should be in the hospital. And the reason we do that is because every person Their civil liberties is so important. You know, we don't want to just take we're not putting you in jail, but you can't leave the hospital if you're there under a court order. So I appoint that person a guardian ad litem, again, at no charge. So within 7 days, we're going to have a hearing. Now, in the old days, and in other places in Alabama, they would make someone who is mentally ill or that's in mental distress do what I call the perp walk. To come to court, they're going to go to the hospital, put them in scrubs. They're going to shackle them up and make them walk through the courthouse in front of their family and friends like they've committed a crime. Now, I don't know about you, but someone that's depressed, that's tried to hurt themselves, I'm not saying that that's going to help them. So through a great partnership with Gadsden Regional, we're able to do that by Zoom. So the family can come. I changed our courtroom decor. We have our own mental health courtroom. I don't wear a black robe. I want it to be relaxed. We're not there about justice. We're there about healing. So we have all the stakeholders in the room. Everybody has a voice. As the judge, I like to think of myself as the referee. I'm calling balls and strikes, but I want to hear from the family, from the professionals, because getting to the baseline is not our only goal. We want to look for healing and continuation. So like housing and all these different aspects. But during the probable cause of the final hearing, I'm going to hear testimony primarily from the physician and the family. Dr. Jamil's going to recommend one of a couple of things. He's going to say, hey, I recommend that this petition be dismissed. I think it's primarily substance abuse, it's intellectual disability, or I think that they don't need to be in the hospital. He might say, Judge, I'm not able to get them to baseline, and because of that, they need extra help. So we might allow them to stay in the hospital for a period. I always do 150 days. 99% of the time they don't stay. How long do you usually keep them? A month or so? A couple weeks?
15 to 20 days.
Yeah, but I give him that time, that window, so that he can get them stabilized. Generally what will happen is we're going to transform that order to an outpatient order. Or during that hearing, he may say, you know what, Judge, we've got them stabilized. We think they can do good on the community, so we do one of two things. One, they will go see a therapist, do outpatient treatment. Now, in the old days, they'd have to travel all the way to Attala and to see their therapist. Now, there's a lot of people, they don't have a car. They don't have the means to get there. So we now have, in our office, we have a therapist that they're going to come and see. They're going to get support from Brian. Brian's going to say, you know what, Brian's the cheerleader. He's going to say, you know what, I know you're scared. I know you're unsure about the future, but I've been there, done that, got the T-shirt, and I've come out better on the other side. Jason is the sword of the court. So if Dr. Jamil says, I need you to take your medication, and then they don't take their medication because that's a part of the recovery process. An ostenosia is a phenomenon where a person is sick, but they don't know it. And so you take the medication, you start feeling better, they stop taking the medication, and we have relapse. That's where Jason comes in. He's going to know that. He's going to be monitoring them, and then he can come to the court and say, hey, they're not complying. We get them back in, and we say, hey, you take your meds or I'm going to have to get you back in the hospital. And the last thing I'll say about that process is that we're about to have our very first graduation. We want to celebrate successes, and Jason's putting all that together, and I'm so excited. So when a person successfully completes outpatient treatment, we're going to bring them in, we're going to have cake, cookies, and I might make some homemade ice cream if Mindy will let me. And we want to celebrate that with their family because it truly takes a village. Now, you always hear about the state hospitals and Bryce hospitals. Now, I will say this, and I really will stop and let you go to the next question. Statistically speaking, I've been on the bench since 2019, January. I've sent 3 people to Bryce Hospital, 3. Out of the hundreds and hundreds we've committed, I send less than 1% to the crisis stabilization unit. And I tell you that for this reason. To go to those places, someone is so they're so ill that we can't get them to baseline. I don't see that as a success or just by coincidence. It's a testament to the success of the program when you see a hospital that can get someone to baseline. When we can get someone healed and back to where they need to be here locally, then we're not having to send them all across the state. So I know I rambled a little bit with that, but that's not an easy question to answer. So the short answer, I'm a politician too. I'm going to tell you a story. There was a man and a woman, and they had a child, and they were trying to figure out what their child was going to be. And so the mother came up with a great idea. She said, what we're going to do is we're going to set up a table in a bedroom, and I'm going to put 3 things on the table, and whatever he goes to, we'll figure out what he's going to be. So she said, we're going to put a Bible on one side of the table. And if he goes to the Bible, he's probably going to be a pastor. We're going to place a pile of money in the middle of the table, and if he goes to the money, he's probably going to be a banker. And then we're going to put a bottle of whiskey over here, and if he does that, it's not a good sign. So they were all excited. The little boy walked into the bedroom, and he looked at his mom and daddy, looked at that table. He went over there, and he took the Bible, and he put it under his arm. He took that money and put it in his pocket. He took a big old sip of whiskey, and the little mama said, Lord, he's going to be a politician. I'll hush now. Go ahead.
So this question is kind of a combination question for Mr. James and Jason. So how do we kill the reputation of the Gadsden Police Department doesn't know how to handle mentally ill patients? So when you guys get a call, the police is the first one on the scene. Now, if it turns into they feel like it's a mental situation, he's the second person on the scene. Jason is the second person on the scene. So can you explain, does the police department have to have any type of mental health training? What does that look like?
I can kind of respond first to that. I'm what you call, in response, a co-responder. So an officer shows up on scene, feels like there's a situation going on where he feels like the individual is in a crisis. That officer already knows his job as far as he thinks they need to go to the hospital. So that's why I'm a co-responder. We want that officer to build the rapport with that individual in the field. So if he can talk them into going to the hospital on their own, great. Job well done. Let's document it and go on. But if that officer feels like he still needs to call a co-responder to the scene because he feels that client needs to go to the hospital and they've told him, no, I'm not going, that's when I come out and do an involuntary commitment for that officer. It is always a safety call for us if those officers call us out. And I'll tell you, Gadsden has been doing a great job to me. Matter of fact, I receive the most calls from Gadsden as a municipality. Those officers they're very good working with the mental health clients, and I even think they're starting some of the mental health crisis training
Correct.
on the units.
Yes.
Let me add on this. We are very fortunate that they are working very well with mental ill patient. But we have to educate our patient. Instead of calling 911, they should start calling 988. That is the fundamental thing that we have to shift from 911 to 988, because the person who is receiving the call from 988 are equipped to deal with a crisis. And the family who should call 988 if the person will take the information, and if they feel that they need to involve 911, they will call 911. So I think when this shift will happen, the police will be less involved.
I hope that day comes soon.
No, I think it is our fault that whenever we discharge the patient, we say, if you need help, call 911, which is like a conditioned reflex, you see.
I will add on to what the doctor said. Quite often, when we get calls, it's because things have gone beyond the point of just needing medical intervention at that point. Quite often, things have gotten violent or have the potential to be violent, involve weapons. To answer your question, initial question, we have gone in the direction of teaching officers primarily de-escalation, because no matter what the situation is, when you get there, we need to try to bring order so that we can come up with some solutions. We're working on teaching officers crisis intervention techniques. I've actually been to training on my own, but we're working on doing that as far as within the department, so much so that even having our own instructors eventually. And if necessary, if things have gotten to a real crisis, many of us are trained in active listening skills as well. So I do understand that we're not these guys, but until we can get him on scene, we're going to do the best that we can do.
And I'll feed off that. We do preach 988 in the field. 988 is on my business cards. We preach it. And there's also another soft line called Wings. You can look it up. It's just a soft line where if you want to call in and just kind of, you're not in crisis, but hey, you want to talk to somebody besides a family member, look it up, check it out. It's a great resource also to, just talk to somebody.
Can I chime in right there?
Yeah.
So there's nothing special about what I do. I know Dr. Jamil and Judge Hassel were talking about the statistics for suicide, and I am just a person, honestly, without a degree, without any other qualification other than the fact that I've walked in the shoes of the people that we support. And those suicide statistics tell you that people around the world from disciplines that are respected, nurses, doctors, are dealing with depression and suicidality on a level that is unprecedented. The problem is, who among them do you know will stand up on the stage and say, I have paranoid schizophrenia. I live with that every day. The reason why the people who are experiencing these suicidality and these depression moments don't stand on stage and announce that in front of a crowd. It's the stigma that we face, the fact that no one wants to be associated with the labels of depression or paranoid schizophrenia in my case. And I wanted to speak up because, I saw the police department in work today, and I was impressed and proud of their patience and the way they showed up for the people struggling. I want to speak up for 988 and the Wings Warm Line. It's a soft line that anyone can call, which I worked at it 3 years, but I was there for 3 years, and I talked to people from all across the United States, and they're all suffering right now. And we're all suffering alone because we're all scared to admit that we all have a problem. And it's not, like I said at the beginning of my little soliloquy, there is nothing special about my discipline. I just have to be brave enough to say, hey, I have a problem and you're not alone. So to echo what Dr. Mills said, please, if you hear a problem or you hear somebody that says, I might be suffering from this, please reach out to them because they're not alone. I wasn't then, and if you speak out to them, they won't be alone in their time of trial either.
Yeah. Let me add to it this peer specialist. This phrase or this word was coined in the VA. I have worked in the VA, I have retired from the VA. Veterans, when they were not listening to the physicians, they were not listening to the counselors, and we started seeing that they were listening to each other. And when we were telling, take this medicine, do this, most of them will talk to us, what do you know? You have not gone to the war. You have not been injured. So then we realize that these veterans will hear from their own people who have been injured. So from there, the concept of the peer specialist arrived. And they were helping them a lot. So when you talk to another person and you tell that I'm taking the medicine, I'm suffering like you, they will listen to you more because they know you are in their shoes. Yeah.
And I won't take up much more space, just to say everyone has known that supporting someone they care about, whatever it may be, just means saying, hey, I hear you, I see you, and I empathize with your experience. Maybe I've had something similar, and you do that with your family members, your friends, your acquaintances. You do that every day. It's why we speak at all to say, hey, I'm here for you, and you're not alone. But like Dr. Jamil said, in Veteran Affairs and with our peer support that we do one-on-one, that's how the world is made, with love and care. But now, with peer support as a discipline, I get to do that every day. I get to ramble here on stage, and I get to promote hope, growth, and encouragement, and work alongside these wonderful people to provide better outcomes and better lives for the people that we support.
Yeah.
Just to add on to what the doctor said, in regards to peer support, I got another job thrown on me recently. I'm in charge of the department peer support program, and I think that'll be another thing that could help us as officers begin to understand and try to have more empathy in regards to how we respond to individuals. With that being said, speaking about stigmas, in the black community, that's something we need to work towards getting away from. Mental health is discussed more in my house than my high A1C and my high blood pressure. And I promise you I got both of them. But we discuss mental health on a daily basis in my home. There's not a person that lives under my roof that does not have a therapist. And there are some people that will hear that and think, well, you know, what's wrong with this guy? Well, I go to a physician because I'm fat and I eat the wrong foods to try to better myself and live longer. What's wrong with approaching that from a mental health standpoint? We're all about self-care when it's going to get your nails done and, you know, getting your toes done, but go visit your therapist once a month and unpack some of that emotional trauma that we all pick up. So that's something we really need to work on in the black community.
Yeah, we definitely have to bridge the gap in our physical health and our mental health. You know, our mental health is more important than our physical health, because if our mental health is not intact, I don't care how physically fit you are, you won't get out of bed. You know, you can be physically fit, but if your brain, if your mind is drowning, it doesn't matter how strong you are. It doesn't matter how, what your labs look like. So our mental health is far more important than our physical health. And we really do need to break that stigma and focus more on our mental health. But at this time, we're going to open up questions from the audience. Now, this is mental health in Etowah County. These people on this stage are mental health in Etowah County. We do have other psychiatrists who are outpatient, but if you are an adult, ages 18 to end of life, this will be your primary psychiatrist. He's the head psychiatrist at Gadsden Regional. So you will see this man if you get admitted to the hospital. You know, so these people on this panel are our mental health representatives. So if you have questions, not for yourself, for your friends, for loved ones, this is the time while we have them in front of us. So let's open up. Who got a question? Tim, I'm gonna let you do this.
Okay, my question is, I don't know, maybe it's a dumb question, but is Alzheimer's, dementia, is that a form of mental health?
I'll take that kind of, it's part of what we deal with as far as crisis response. A lot of people don't realize that a urinary tract infection can throw your mental health off big time. I've probably been on at least 15 calls where it ended up being a simple urinary tract infection. But I can promise you, if that individual had not sought care, they may have either passed away or hurt themselves or someone else. And as far as Alzheimer's dementia, you know, there's a myriad of issues that go along with that, sundowners. So anytime a person experiences that type of crisis too, we do deal with that on a pretty regular basis. Dr. Jamil and them, Gadsden Regional has a wonderful Jerry sock floor. Riverview has a wonderful Jerry sock floor. So we have those resources in the community. It's another situation. If you feel like your family member is not acting appropriately, go ahead and call 911. Let us come out. Let us get them in the hospital if you feel like that's what needs to happen.
And I want to piggyback on something you just said, and I think this is an important, they're talking about the medical side, but I want you to be thinking about societal, from things we have to accept. if we had someone that had a diagnosis of cancer and we sent them to MD Anderson and they had lung cancer, and we told them, hey, if you'll stay an extra 3 weeks, you're going to be cured and everything's going to be fine. No one would do that. We don't have that expectation. But so many times we will see someone that's in a mental health crisis. Maybe they have dementia. Maybe they have some kind of mental illness, mental disease. And we put them in the hospital. Dr. Jamil's goal is to get them to baseline, where they're functioning as good as they can be. But sometimes we have an expectation that because it's behavior oriented, we personalize it. My grandmother had dementia. My mother adored my grandmother. And I think because I was the oldest, my grandmother kind of gravitated to me after she was delusional. She didn't really know what was going on. And she came to me one day and said, Scott, your mother's being mean to me when you're not around. It devastated my mother. And she was like, you know that's not true. And I said, Mother, I know it's not, but to me, Mom, it is. That's real to her right now. May not be in 15 minutes. But we as a society, we as people, we as family members of loved ones that are suffering from mental illness have to understand that our expectations have to be, we want to get to baseline. We're treating it, so I'm with you, Mitch. I've got Dunlop disease, my belly Dunlopped over my belt.
He used to be a cop.
I was at church tonight, and I told Mindy driving over here, so I got to do something. I'm eating way too much. But when I go to the doctor, there's a consequence for that, right? And so encouraging people to manage their mental illness by the taking of meds, understand that when people say something to you, and I think Brian alluded to that earlier, you know, he said, I don't know if you caught that, he said, I used to be the guy walking on the street that people would look at and be afraid of. We are not the sum of our behaviors. And when you have a loved one or someone that's suffering from mental illness, we have to understand that they're sick. Just like you have heart disease, you know, if you go in and have a back surgery or something, or a woman has a baby, we send them flowers. We send them to the hospital. My apologies. If someone goes to the hospital with a mental health crisis, we just don't talk about it. Like what Mitch said, we don't want to talk about it. It's a disease of the brain, just like there's the disease of the heart and the liver. And I hope that's on topic, but when you said Alzheimer's dementia, it just kind of struck a chord in my heart because there's so many of us that have dealt with that and are dealing with that.
Alzheimer's dementia, there is no treatment. There is no treatment. There is supportive treatment. When people bring their loved ones and they expect that their loved ones will regain their memory, that's a false hope. They will never get back to their baseline. The medicine which we are giving them will only slow the process, because our brain is conditioned that when we take the medicine we will get better, but Alzheimer's medicines don't work like that.
Okay, next question. I like what the doctor said as far as not diagnosing a drug addiction, as far as being mentally ill to after 6 months, but for the law enforcement. So how do you distinguish, like you go out and you got this person that's on drugs, how are you going to tell the difference? What are you going to do? Are you going to negotiate? I think you said you know, how are you going to just figure out? I know if you got a name and they got priors or whatever, you know, you can type that in and they'll show up. But if they don't, and so how do y'all distinguish that? And how do you keep them from harming themselves and others?
I'm going to answer that first because that's easiest. A lot of people don't understand why when we go out on those type of calls, why we feel like we need to handcuff people sometimes. And we don't necessarily handcuff you because you're going to go to jail. Sometimes we have to protect you from yourself. So sometimes we have to restrain people. We'll call an ambulance, and they don't handcuff people. They restrain people in other ways. But if somebody is if we don't know whether it's a mental illness or a drug type situation, we always defer to the medical people for that, hospitals, doctors. So in either one of those situations, if you're experiencing some type of altered state because of drugs or alcohol, well, where do you need to be anyway? Jail may not be the best place for you either. So we can always go back later. You know, we take that person to the hospital because they're experiencing some type of crisis. If we get them to the hospital and the doc here says, no, that guy's just drunk, well, we know where we're going from that point on. But just for the purposes of that individual's safety, we always defer to medical care in that type of situation. Now, if somebody's just walking down the street, you know, behaving poorly, and we speak with them, and it doesn't seem that they have any immediate medical needs, then likely that person's going to go to jail. But in those type of situations, like you said, if we can't tell the difference, we're always going to defer to going to the hospital, always.
And to kind of piggyback on the challenges that they have, prior to January 1 of this year, the laws of the state of Alabama says that addiction is not a mental illness, it's a crime. Yeah. So, and I'm going to tell you why that would hinder my situation. So let's say that I had someone that maybe was suffering from bipolar disorder and they were self-medicating, which happens a lot. As soon as they got to the hospital, if their drug screen showed positive for drugs, I automatically lost jurisdiction. It was considered a criminal offense, even though we know, well, there's a couple of things that rubbed me the wrong way about that. One, the DSM manual, which is the Diagnostic and Statistical Manual, that's the manual used to diagnose mental illness. Substance abuse is a mental illness. But under the laws of Alabama, it was not. That law changed this year, January 1st. Now, if they have a misdemeanor, and let's say, Mr. James, they arrest someone, and he's in court, and this happens to, I got to give my hats to all of our municipal police departments. They do a good job with this. They'll call and say, hey, we just wanted to make this guy safe. It's obvious he's got a problem. Where last year I couldn't do anything about it. Now I could reach out to the municipal judge, or they can reach out to me and say, hey, this is not a criminal offense. This person needs help. And so I can take jurisdiction of the matter and get them into the treatment that they need. So it's gotten better, but a lot of folks don't realize that in Alabama, substance abuse was a crime, not an illness, which is unfortunate.
There are 4 steps, and there is a thin line. When somebody uses drug, they have altered mental status. Altered mental status is a mental condition. Psychosis is a mental condition. Addiction is their behavior, their indulgence. But altered mental status and psychosis is a condition where person is putting himself or other people in danger. You have to address that condition. So wherever that person is, at home, public place, you have to isolate that person. That is the first step. Ambulance is called. You have to isolate that person in ambulance. Recently, a person jumped out of the ambulance. Second step. Then that person is brought to our ER. We have to stabilize that person in our ER. We keep that person in our ER for 12 to 24 hours. If that person is not stable, then we admit that patient. So that is the 4th step. Recently, there was a case in Walker County. A person was very high on meth. He was shooting on the law enforcement. They arrested him. He was so high that they have to tie him. They couldn't hold him. They tie him with the chair. They put him in the freezer. He freeze to death. They brought him to the ER. He died, and the whole police department was facing the lawsuit. So you have to be careful, because there is a very thin line where that person is out of control. So it is always play safe. I always tell the ER physician, keep them in the ER, Make it safe because life is precious. You are not going to lose anything, but save the life. Okay? We are already losing so many lives. So whenever you have a chance to save the life, save the life. Yeah.
Yeah. I just wanted to ask a question about ratio. Considering since post-COVID, there has been probably an increase in mental health cases. What about your workload? Are you guys able to manage the workload? I know in certain disciplines there's a shortage of nurses, there's a shortage of providers, things of that nature. And I just wanted to know, how you guys see that. Do you see an increase in mental health cases? Because I personally have no knowledge of it, but it seems like it's more out there. And so I just was concerned about you all's workload.
So I know for the probate court, our commitment numbers have remained pretty consistent for the last 10 years. We have seen a slight decrease actually in recent years, and I attribute that to the fact that we're managing, I say we as a team, as a community, are doing a better job managing them on an outpatient basis. Now, I don't know about the hospital admissions, but you do bring up a really good point, is that while we can have all of these great and wonderful, and I'm very proud of our team Etowah, but at the end of the day, after it's all said and done, we're dependent upon beds. And the number of beds that Dr. Jamil had 10 years ago is basically the same as he has today. And the waiting list, another reason about like Bryce Hospital, 18 months, 12 months?
18 months.
18 months. If I sent someone today to Bryce Hospital, they're going to sit in the hospital, Gadsden Regional, for 18 months theoretically before they can go to Bryce. And there's a lot of sick people that would not have a bed at Gadsden Regional, so that's why we're trying to manage them. But to your question, I haven't really seen an increase. I've seen a slight decrease, which is, I think, a positive thing. Doc, what'd you see?
After COVID, the number of child and adolescents patients have increased. In our ER, every week we used to see 5. Now the number have increased to 12. At different, we used to admit 1 nurse or 2 nurses per month. Now I'm admitting 3 nurses per month, 3 to 4 nurses per month. So COVID has affected the different medical profession more. Lot of nurses have left the field because one of the prolonged COVID, when somebody who have 3 or 4 times COVID and they have prolonged COVID, the rate of suicide is very high in those patients. And they cannot function, they cannot come back and function on the same baseline. A lot of nurses have left the job and they are working on some odd jobs or they have retired. A lot of physicians have retired because they cannot function on the same baseline.
And I don't want to forget too, I would love to hear what, yeah, I'm curious how you felt. It's stopped now, right? Okay, good.
So real quick, I own a shelter locally, and there's a lot of homeless individuals there. How can we provide these services to them because they have no families? And I know that you talked about, go to your family, go to your friends, and talk to them and let them be, you be their safe place. But these individuals come from different areas and different walks of life, and they have no one but us. We become their family. So do you provide services or can send somebody out to talk to these individuals?
Oh, yeah, I'll take that. Yes, absolutely. I mean, we have a number of homeless individuals, homeless patients. Sometimes they're even come from the hospital and just have dire needs for housing. It's not only hospital beds. We need designated mental health housing for individuals that come out and just trying to get back on their feet. Housing is a hard resource for us to attain for a lot of individuals. And even like with Social Security, I'll use this example. If you file for a Social Security application, you've got to be able to get mail somewhere. If you miss one piece of mail, Social Security cancels your application. So there's just so many hurdles for homeless, but absolutely, if you send them to our office, we're going to wrap around them and try to get them whatever resources we can. CED has open appointments on Monday. They can walk in, be mentally health assessed. If they need help with medications, we'll try to do whatever we can to make sure they get that consistent mental health.
And it goes back to the taking the village to do it. If I said the person's last name, Mr. James, immediately, it's probably going to know who I'm talking about when I say Josh, last initial is T. This young man, we've been dealing with him for 20 plus years, and his baseline, right, when he's at his perfect baseline, it's still below what society would consider normal. So he's constantly in a state of homelessness where he's interacting with the police. What we've learned is in Jason's closet, he's got sleeping bags. We keep beanie weenies, food. Josh has come a couple of times. He would sleep during the day, he'd be sleeping on the back portico of the courthouse. And I'd say, come on in, take you a nap up here in one of the, on the benches. That maybe seems a little bit unorthodox, but you're there, you're in the trenches. And our churches have got to be involved. You think about this. I bet you struggle for funding, trying to make ends meet ever. The number of churches we had, now this is not politically correct, is that okay? I may go to preaching. If the number of churches that we have in our community, if every church said, I'll support you as a shelter for one night a year, there's 365 days a year, but I'll support one night financially and with staffing, we could easily do that, and it wouldn't be a burden to you anymore. It would help Mitch and folks like him who are out there on the front lines every day. They've got a place for people to go. It wouldn't burden our churches. But we've got to get, the stigma of mental health is one thing. We've got to get outside these walls. We've got to say, you know what, the work, this is the pep rally on Sunday. We need to be out on the streets and the hedgerows and the valleys and everywhere else making a difference. Because until we do that, it's just lip service. Sadly, while this team is great, at the end of the day, by the time they get to us, we're just maintaining. It's got to start when they're children. It's got to start in the home. So that's probably didn't answer your question, but I felt like I had to say that. But I thank you for what you're doing.
And I'll feed off that a little bit more too, brother. Call me. I'll come out, at least once a week if we have to figure out what we need to do, and we'll figure it out together.
I don't think most citizens in Gadsden have any idea how many homeless individuals we have in this town, because during the day they tend to disappear. They don't want you to see them for the most part. And many of you drive down Megan Boulevard. My office is over at the old Forest Elementary School. Forest Middle School. And many of you drive down that road and have no idea that there's 20 homeless individuals. People first, but there's 20 individuals under that bridge, sleeping under there to stay out of the rain. Under there to stay out of the weather, stay out of the rain. They try to hide. There's homeless encampments in the woods. There was a local grocery store that you come out of the store, and there was a small little hill next to the store, and on the other side of that store, there's probably 40 people living in tents. They purposely try to stay out of sight, and not all of them are what people think. They're not out here panhandling or begging, but the lion's share of those individuals almost always have some type of mental illness.
Most people who suffer from mental illness, they can't maintain a job, so most of them end up homeless or self-medicating, end up on drugs. So do you have any more questions?
I feel very, very embarrassed that this is going on, and I had no idea it was going on. I think you said something that that really struck me. You have 100 cases where the police interact, and one, it goes sour. And everybody knows about that, but the 99, nobody ever hears about that. You know, my hat's off to you, your team, because you could easily say, we'll just throw them in jail or throw away the key. But this is what Jesus Christ would want, is that we take care of those who can't take care and defend themselves. But my thing is, there needs to be a greater awareness within the community about what's going on here. Because I'm that example tonight. I had no idea. And I really feel embarrassed that I didn't even know that this is going on. And I mean, I know about mental health, but it's about, like, you know, you only visit the hospital when you get sick, but you don't know what's going on daily there at the hospital. And like you're saying, if somebody is acting abnormal, you know, you need to talk to them, see about it. But again, that's me being normal, looking at somebody abnormal, and I just think that there should be a greater awareness, some type of promotion for your team to be made aware to the community than what it is. And I think that the community is actually, when we become engaged with it, is because one of our family members, you know, and I always say, what's the most critical thing in our life is going to be probably the most embarrassing thing. And that's when we go in silence and all. But I just think that there should be a greater awareness of what you guys are doing. And that's what I'm saying. I'm embarrassed that I didn't even know that you had this team and that you were doing what you're doing, and it's happening.
When people come with an overdose, and I talk to their family member, and they tell me they don't have any idea. I say, how come you don't have any idea? This, your son, your daughter, your husband, your wife have taken such overdose, they are on vent, they are about to die. And they said, no, I don't have any idea. Everything was fine. I said, go back and tell me. And then they start telling, yes, this thing has happened, this thing happened. I said, you don't have any idea? These are all red flags, you see. So
my question is, when you see a person, know a person that is acting different than what you used to, how do you really reach out to that person? I mean, really, how do you reach out and tell them, hey, you need to go get some help, you need something?
Well, that's a great question. And to piggyback off of that question, what Dr. Jamil just said, it starts in our families and the people we care about. And you don't have to be these upstanding gentlemen. You don't have to be one of the pillars of mental health in NY County to make a difference. I mean, you're here tonight, you're making a difference. The gentleman said the awareness he's raising by this embarrassment, but I applaud you, sir, because that awakening, as it were, that awareness, we spread that out into the world. And I'm not a psychiatrist or judge or police officer or anything, what have you. I'm a person with a testimony, and that's powerful. So what you do is you care, and you say it, and you speak it when you see it, and you might not have the perfect words, but I don't have the perfect words tonight, and perfect is not given on this earth, but you go and you care, and you express it as best you can, and you show up, and that's enough.
now, you don't have to be judgmental. You don't have to say, what's wrong with you? You don't have to say, have you taken your medicine? These are the questions, will take them off. You have to be polite. You have to give them the space. You have to be more friendly. Because when you start questioning them, blaming them, have you taken drugs? Are you on drugs? Are you smoking more? They will get more defensive. So instead of opening up, they will close in. So, because what happens when people see somebody acting strange, they get anxious. They start acting strange. Two people acting strange will never solve the problem.
I knew it was coming. I knew it.
Yeah.
We don't let him out much. He's in the hospital way too long.
Doctor, can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
In my line of work, and in my what I do as far as negotiation, we teach our officers that it is okay to ask if somebody is considering suicide.
Yes.
There's always been this myth that if you bring it up, they're gonna think about doing it, like they haven't thought about it 1,000 times before now.
No. This is old myth that if you ask somebody that you are thinking about suicide, they will start thinking. Suicide is everywhere. Everybody's talking. They are online. These people are going online and looking a lot of bad stuff. So bringing up suicide has nothing to do that they will think about suicide. You have to ask.
It's police officers are some pretty assertive guys sometimes, and you should see the way they squirm when you tell them you need to ask this person if they're considered. I'm not going to ask him that. Now you'll take somebody, turn them around, and put handcuffs on them, but you won't ask them a simple question.
You can say more softly. Mm-hmm. Are you thinking of hurting yourself? There is a difference between suicide and hurting yourself. Hurting is much softer.
Yes. But they get uncomfortable. Men who have been trained to ask some of the most outrageous questions get uncomfortable at the thought of discussing
suicide, homicide are the bad words. Hurting is not. Hurt is hurt, you see. But it gives you the same meaning, you see.
Well, and there's a whole other, this is a topic for another day, but I want you to think about this, Mitch. We can send a man or a woman into combat, and they can spend 1 year and have a traumatic experience and be forever changed through post-traumatic stress disorder to the fact that they might be on disability, they are debilitated.
Yeah.
You've been a law enforcement officer for almost 3 decades. I know calls that you've been on. You've seen things that would absolutely terrify the people in this room. You didn't see it 1 year. You didn't see it 5 years. You saw it 3 decades. So many times, I think our law enforcement officers experience and are experiencing post-traumatic stress disorder, and it never goes treated. If there's an officer-involved shooting, if you experience a death, we walked in here tonight and saw a death. It was a little puppy, just a puppy. And it touched us.
Yeah.
If the human beings that you have seen lose their life through the years, you see that, you go home, you take a shower, you go to bed, you wake up the next day, and you go back to work.
Wake up, I don't sleep.
You know what I mean? It affects you. Mm-hmm. So I think that's another conversation for another day, obviously. But our first responders, our nurses, people that are compassion fatigue, that's something we have to address. And I think that's why sometimes they're hesitant to ask those questions, because maybe they've thought about putting a gun in their mouth after one of those calls.
Like I said, we're working on peer support right now, but I'm not ashamed to tell anybody I have a therapist that I see once a month, and I go in that. Any of you go to the chiropractor? That feeling you get when you leave the chiropractor? Well, imagine that feeling emotionally and mentally. You know, you just feel like you went in there and got your back popped and got your massage. I feel like another person.
The reason why. It's our inflicted wound. If in service, if somebody says, I have PTSD, their rank will be demoted. They will be, it's a red flag. So all the people who are in the uniform, and I've seen this, all the people who are in the uniform, they will not claim they have PTSD. The day they retire, the second day they will come to the VA and they say they have PTSD. So I asked them, how can you are in the service for 20 years, you never had the PTSD, and the 20 years and day one you have PTSD? They say, we cannot claim that we have PTSD.
We don't talk about it.
And the same thing in the police.
Yeah.
If you have PTSD, when the review board will see, that's a red flag.
One of the things we've had to recognize in law enforcement is that when you have frustrated, angry cops going out and dealing with people, it makes things worse.
Yes.
That's why we leave a child death or suicide and then come to your house because somebody stole your flower pot, and guess what? I don't really care about your flower pot. Yeah, so that's why they tend to be angry sometimes, and that's what generates complaints and problems with citizens. And that's one of the things we're trying to work on in our own house, so we can be better for y'all.
To piggyback on what they were saying about how to deal with people with mental illness and substance use abuse, there are Al-Anon groups for parents, loved ones to know how to, or learn how to deal with, or how to treat their loved ones, or what do I do if I get in this situation? How do I approach him? Because a lot of times, a lack of understanding. That's why awareness is so great. And peer support. I am a peer support myself. Working with Judge House, and you're in the jail, right?
I'm at probate court.
Okay. This was a different one. Who would better understand the people that's going through? We can better recognize the illnesses, the mental illness or substance use abuse. We can recognize that because we've had lived experience. But everybody is not a peer support. They don't know. So that's how come that awareness is so good. Not just here, and a lot of people may not be watching TV, or I'm not TV, but online. So it is up to us to get out to make people aware of the things that's going on, because family members don't know. They'll come at you like, oh, you can do better, or you can go and stop this, which they can't. And they have to understand that. And that's how come they have the Al-Anon support groups for the loved ones whose family members are on substance use or mental illness.
And there's a group called NAMI, so I want to challenge any of your churches. We don't have one here. Brian's about to testify. Look at that. We need one of those here. So that's a ministry to folks that are hurting. We'll show you how to do it. We'll give you the resources. If any church wants to do that, we support it. You know, Mr. James talked about the black community. Celebrate recovery programs. It's hard. I remember when we were doing substance abuse, I can send you to, no one likes to talk about the elephant in the room, but as much as we are the same, we are different. Culturally, there are some differences. If I had an African-American male that I was wanting to send to a recovery program, I had to send him somewhere to someone that maybe they couldn't appreciate the cultural differences in his life. So that goes back to our churches too. We can do that. That doesn't cost us any money. It's just a matter of making it happen. And there's the resources. So I'm telling you right now, I'm pledging to you as your probate judge, we'll get you those resources. You just tell me that you want to do it, get the time and the place, and we'll make it happen.
And if I could talk to that, I mean, there's so many resources that can help you. Like I say, there's no special skills to what I do other than my lived experience, and that's true. But I've had training to help the way that to help me intervene and show up in my authenticity, to respect and honor dignity and choice, to honor risk and the ability to make your own choice and self-determination. And there's all those things that you can craft and hone. But I think I said what I said earlier, because I would say all that the Al-Anon, the NAMI Connection, which I've done for many years, Connections, a support group for people with lived experience with mental health condition, and for the family members as well, all that starts with care. So if you see one who's hurting, I mean, you can be crafted, you can be skilled, you can have the training I have, you can be one of these pillars of the community, but you don't have to be. But it starts with care. So whether you've had all those training and skills, or whether you don't have any, expressing care and concern is where it starts.
Judge Hassel, you want to explain? Brandon, you want to come up here?
Come on up here, Brandy.
Come stand up here. Do you want to explain what you put on her?
I did. So, yeah, let me see your, and I don't want to get out of your camera shot. So, take those off. I want to show them what I gave you just a minute ago. So this is some of you may have one of these headsets yourself. They don't actually go in your ear. They go on the side, and they'll tap. So what she just experienced for the past, I would say, 25 minutes was auditory hallucinations. And the reason I do that is it gives individuals an appreciation for someone that has dealt with schizophrenia, to know what that's like. Tell me what it was like listening to us and everything going on in the room when that was happening. How did that make you feel? Was it easy to pay attention? What was going on?
It was definitely hard. It was hard to pay attention. It was just a constant voice, just constant voices just going. So yeah, I did have to put it down because it was just too much going on.
You had to take it down?
Yes, because it was just too much. It was too much.
So let me ask you.
Focus on what they were saying and still trying to. It's just a whole bunch of people talking.
In your head.
Yeah.
Did anybody in the room see that she was, or did you know that she was experiencing that? So how about the guy that we've all seen walking across the Megan Bridge, swatting things? Maybe that's the situation he's in, and nobody else knows it. Let me ask you, could you, if you'd walk down to McDonald's right now, with all that going on, you think you could order a Big Mac and a Coke?
No.
No, you can't. That's real life. For someone that is experiencing those hallucinations, that is real life every day. So thank you for doing that and sharing your experience.
Now, let me explain the biological reason for this. Every noise which you hear, there is a chemical reaction happens in the brain. So the noise, the auditory hallucination which you are hearing is developing in the brain. And the noise which we are talking is coming from outside. They are traveling through the ear and then they are going to the brain. Auditory hallucinations, they are already in the brain and they are more prominent. So people who hear those auditory hallucinations, they are more prominent, they are more louder than the outside noise. And you will acknowledge that.
I can. The last time, I'm sorry, move this a little further away. Last time I was in the hospital, the attending psychiatrist told me, he said, this gentleman looks to be attending to internal stimuli. This is what they say when you are behaving oddly and not interacting with the world around you because the voices are so loud. And at that point, I firmly believed that I was upset with him. And seeing me today, you might not believe this, but it's the honest truth. I was upset with him, angry even, because I knew that he could communicate with me telepathically, but he was refusing to do so. He was vocalizing. And so I was angry. And these things are happening in my head all the time. And I'm grateful that eventually I checked myself into the hospital, and it started off like that. But I met a psychiatrist who changed my life, and I found the right medication. I had a great treatment team, and that was 8 years ago. I was attending to internal stimuli, and those are memories, but not my present. And so there is hope.
And I'm going to say this last thing, and we're going to wrap it up. Dr. Jamil has to drive all the way back to Birmingham, so we're going to get him on the road. But as far as the voices, you said they're already in the head. What about when the voices are telling you to hurt yourself? What about when the voices are telling you you're not worthy, you're ugly, don't nobody love you? Can you imagine that being played over and over and over in your head, and then you wonder why Susan jumped off the bridge? Because she just wants the voices to stop. And then we look at suicide and say, that person was selfish. No, that person was hurting, you know. So did you ever have a time where your voices told you to hurt yourself or to hurt someone else?
Yes, I did. In addition to a person that lives with paranoid schizophrenia, I'm also a survivor of attempted suicide. And because, like you said, someone who has these bizarre, loud voices in their mind, like this young lady for 25 minutes, but lives with that like all the time, you get to the point when you get fed up. And I got fed up many, many, many times. It just so happened the last time I got fed up, I checked myself into a psychiatric hospital instead of finding that bridge. And that's the only reason I'm here tonight.
So again, I want to say thank you. Thank you for all your hard work. Thank you for what you do. You know, sometimes it goes unappreciated. Sometimes the police department get a bad rep, but we really, really, really appreciate what you guys do, and we thank you for your time tonight. I know you guys are busy, but we greatly appreciate you guys.
Thank you.
I'm very blessed, and I've been doing this for last almost 25 years, driving from Birmingham. I love this community. I love the place where I work. And in last 25 years, I have a lot of other job opportunities, but I always come back here.
Let me say this. Dr. Jamil is the first psychiatrist I had the opportunity of working with. This man has taught me everything I know about mental health. He's very, very wise. He's very, very wise. So he knows what he's doing. He knows what he's talking about. He's been in the game a very, very long time. One more question, and we're going to wrap this up. Hold on, Renee.
My question goes to the concern of the young people. Many times we say they are in their rooms, playing their games, and they don't want to be bothered with nobody. But what if there is a constant separating yourself from the world? Is that part of a depression because you don't want to be bothered with nobody? It's like you hate everybody and you just want to be by yourself.
There is a difference between sadness and depression. Sadness is when you are down, you're feeling blue, but you are still connected to the world, you are still going to your school, going to the college, you are still going to the job. But when you are neglecting your life, when you are neglecting your work, when you are neglecting your family, you are neglecting your job, that is depression. As far as you're playing only games, then that is addiction. We only think that addiction is substance. No. Internet addiction is there. Gambling addiction is there. Prawn addiction is there. So anything which affects your life, anything which affects the norm, anything which affects your relationship is addiction. Average person nowadays spends 7 hours online. If it is not productive, it means that is addiction. If you are spending 7 hours of your life just seeing TikTok, that is addiction. Yes. People don't realize what they are doing. They are wasting their time. And parents are They are living in their home like hostage. They cannot even say anything, and they have to feed the child, they have to pay the bills, they cannot throw the child, and they are just living they are miserable.
How old is this child you're talking about?
Now,
And this child has even tried to commit suicide.
so
And of all his life, maybe he would be in his room, he would just don't have anything to do with anybody, even with his parents. And it's just like, what's school one day?
is he going to the school? Is he going to the school? If his grade is going down, if hygiene is going down, if he's losing weight, all these are the red flags for the depression. Yeah.
Bishop, you want to wrap us up? You got anything you want to say?
I applaud this panel. I applaud this panel, that's right. And, one of the things that I think as a church, the commercial says about Captain D's is a great little seafood place, but they don't serve lobster, and you can't get crab legs, but it's a seafood place. And I think that the same thing when it comes to church, we can come in here and preach and sing and go to the top of the river, but we have not affected any lives. And I think, as I think the judge was saying, that we got to get beyond these walls, because there is really real ministry that's needed. And I think that my thing is tonight, I think that one great giant step would be to get this panel and this work exposed to where that the community is aware of. Like I'm saying, I am a representative tonight. I didn't know this is going on. I know about mental health. We've had cases here and there, but didn't know that you guys were doing this. And it is very easy to criticize and to make judgments on stuff that you don't even know about. You're not even aware of what's going on. And so I applaud you tonight, but I pray that this gets exposed to where that the community knows that this is available to make you aware and not just pull out the spare tire when you have a flat. But it's just a thing to where that the community needs to know that we have help and that there are people that have compassion and not just punching the clock, but they have compassion and want to see us better as a community. And so, and man, yours is just so powerful. And I know for myself that I have been to the place to where I have been so overwhelmed, and I think I've mentioned to my wife, it's like I got to taste how it is to be just overwhelmed. You got to fight, of course, but there are times where it's just like, hey, you know what? I'm scared. I'm overwhelmed, and I think just knowing that this is going on, and that we have these resources here, this knowledge here, this care. When you keep saying care, that's what it's all about. And I think we just need to pray to see how can we promote and get this out there to let the community know this is available, this can help you, and I believe that would be our first step. That would be our first step. So, I applaud you guys. Y'all are, you know, you got your thing together, and I think Mr. Mitchell, he was saying he go to his therapist, and you know, that's one of the things right there that a lot of people don't understand. We're more spiritual and mental than we are physical, and so, but it gets the least attention. And you know what I'm saying? I'm running and jogging, but I don't go to my therapist. I ain't got a therapist. I don't go to a therapist, and you know what I'm saying? And you know, I don't want nobody to think I'm crazy. So, you know, I try to keep stuff to myself. But that's the wrong thing. But again, I applaud you, and I thank you for this time. And Jessica, thank you for bringing this. And, I always say this, and I won't turn it back, but I always say this right here. I'm the pastor of the church, but I can't beat the drums. But I got somebody who can. I'm the pastor, and I can't play them keys. But I got somebody who can. And there's a lot of things. And we don't have to be able to do it all. But just having that team around us that can do what we can't do. So I applaud you tonight. I applaud you tonight.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank y'all for coming out. Y'all be careful. I don't know if it's raining.